Make sure you subscribe to our channel by clicking on the red subscribe button. And to never miss another lecture from Miracle, hit the bell icon to get regular updates on English literature. Hello and welcome to Miracle English Language and Literature Institute. I am Professor Abha Sharma and we are doing the critical appreciation of different poems. Today I am going to take up In Memory of W.B. Yeats, written by W.H.AUden. Yes, the same Auden who was a friend to Stephen Spender and C.S. Lewis, and they all belong to Oxford group of poets. He's often grouped up together with T.S. Eliot, W.B. Yeats, and other modern poets. W.B. Yeats died on 28th January 1939. Therefore, W.H.AUden wrote an elegy on his fellow poet. Also, he wrote an elegy on Sigmund Freud by the similar kind of name, in memory of Sigmund Freud. So this elegy is not the traditional one, very different from the elegies you must have studied in literature. It has got three parts and we'll do one by one. So let's take up part number one. He begins by saying that he disappeared in the dead of winter, the brooks were frozen, the airports almost deserted, the snow disfigured the public statues. Now he's giving you the city imagery, the city life. And he died in winter. Of course, he died in January and it was a chilly, severe winter. And he is making it parallel to the death. Death is seemed as cold as this season, the weather. So brooks were also frozen. The airports, of course, people were not traveling much because of the severe winter, and there was a lot of snowfall, which disfigured the public statue. Means the statues in their poses were all covered by snow, so they were not in their proper figures. And the mercury sank in the mouth of the dying day. Even the instruments which measure the intensity of the temperature, they also agreed that during the evening, mouth of the dying day means when the evening approaches and the day dies, that is, it gets over. So the instruments also were giving the exact figures of the temperature which was felt by the people then, and the day of his death was a dark, cold day, of course, inside and out. His body was dead, everybody was sad, and even the day was lamenting the death. The weather was also lamenting his death. Now, the other scene. Now, this was the scene of the city life. Now he takes up to the a forest life, where far from his illness, like he was ill and he was, I think, under observation of doctors. And you know that many a times when the known and popular personality is ill, there are rumors about his death. So many a times people thought that he was already dead, but the wolves, the river, and other entities of nature were in ignorance. They did not know that he was ill and would be dying very soon. So he says the wolves ran on through the evergreen forest. The peasant river is so peasant, so humble, and it is not tempted by the fashionable quays. Means you make a beautiful, very fashionable harbor near the river, I mean on the bank of the river, but the river will not stop there. River will not be tempted by the beautiful the quays, or say the shows you make on the bank. By mourning tongues, this is again transferred epithet. People are mourning through their tongues, means by speaking of W.B. Yeats. So the death of the poet was kept from his poems. The poems were still alive. Poems were still being read by the people, but the poet was dead. But for him, it was his last afternoon as himself, an afternoon of nurses and rumors. See, he again gives you this the imagery of the hospital where nurses were just, running around, and the doctors taking care of Yeats, and there were rumors of his death also. The provinces of the body revolted. Provinces, the vital parts of the body, they revolted means they stopped working. They said, they were retiring one by one. The squares of the mind were empty. He could not remember anything. His brain was already dead in a way. So squares are the cells of the mind were empty. You must have experienced that the people, when they grow old, they become schizophrenic and they forget most of the things or the experiences of life. They stop recognizing people when people go to meet them in the hospital. So again, silence invaded the suburbs. Suburbs, he's saying, like, it is a pun here. See, suburbs of the body, the outer parts of the body were also revolting along with the vital parts, and suburb means the area, the surrounding area of the city was also silent because of the dead of winter, because of the chilly winter. The current of his feeling failed. He became his admirers. Very beautiful line. The current of his feeling failed means he died. His body stopped reacting. There was no feeling left in the body, and he became his admirers. His admirers were already anticipating his death, so he died. Now he scattered among 100 cities and wholly given over to unfamiliar affection. See, now, after his death, he's still alive through his poetry, and he is scattered all over the world and wholly given over to unfamiliar affections. See, we've never met Yeats, we've never seen him, but still we love him, we respect him, we like his poems. Through his poems, we know him so well. The relation between the poet and the reader is through unfamiliar affection. To find his poet happiness in another kind of word, another kind of race, another kind of people. He was an Irish poet and he wanted to convey his thoughts through poetry, and here we in India, another kind of word means totally different than his race, are happy to read. So he finds satisfaction by conveying his ideas to the people around and be punished under a foreign code of conscience. Again, a very beautiful line. See, people who do not know English well, so they translate the thing in their own language. Foreign code is the language of other people, and he'll be punished, of course, because when you translate anything from one language to another, the spirit is sometimes not doesn't remain the same. It doesn't remain the same. It changes. The spirit changes according to the translation, so you can say that it is punished under a foreign code of conscience. The words of dead men are modified in the guts of the living. Words, the poetry of the person who is dead, is taken up by the readers according to their own culture, according to their own guts of the living, according to their own ways, on their own beliefs, or according to their own subconscious. It is modified. So he says that, but in the importance and noise of tomorrow, when the brokers are roaring like priests on the floor of the brows. Now again he takes up to the city life, where there is too much hustle bustle, where there is no time to stop and think and lament. So he talks about the stock exchanges, where there is so much crowd and noise that brokers are roaring like beasts, like animals on the floor of the bourse. Means the stock exchange is unaware or is ignorant to the death of Yeats, and there is the activities are going on as usual, and the poor have the sufferings to which they are fairly accustomed. Even the poor people do not realize that Yeats is dead, and they are accustomed to their own life. They're happy there. We people can sympathize with them that they being poor, but they are too much accustomed with whatever sufferings they have or whatever life they live in. And each in the cell of himself is almost convinced of his freedom. We all feel that we are free. We are all, we have this notion. This may be wrong also. The subconscious notion is there that we are free. But then a few thousand will think of his day. Only few people who really admired Yeats and his work would think about, and that much only when one thinks that something unusual, slightly unusual has happened. They will also not devote too much of time in lamenting the death. They will also feel this for a very brief period, that something different has happened today. What instruments we have agreed, the day of his death was a dark, cold day. Now, this is a refrain from the first stanza that, of course, the instruments are also saying that it was a very, very cold day. So, in this part, the poet gives us different imageries, one of the city life and other of the countryside, both contrastive. In the city, the weather agrees with the death by being so cold, the rivers getting frozen, and the airports deserted. And on the other hand, the countryside animals, the beast, the river, the peasant river, they are not seen affected by the death of the poet. And again, he comes to the stock exchange floor where the brokers are shouting on the top of their voices, showing no concern for the death of the poet. Even the poor people who do not know him, they are well accustomed with their own life, whether full of suffering or happiness. They are not concerned at all. So he says with a refrain that the day of his death was a dark, cold day. So here we finish part 1. Part 2nd and 3rd I'll take in the next video. Please like, share, comment and subscribe to the channel. Take care until I meet you next with the 2nd and 3rd part of In Memory of W.B. Yeats.